Is it time to abolish the House of Lords altogether? The government plans to axe all hereditary peers within the next 18 months. That means anybody who inherited their title from a family member will no longer have the honour of sitting on the red benches. Since 1999, there have been 92 hereditary peers. All are white men, all with an average age of just below 70. Labour said these peerages are outdated and indefensible, but if the hereditary peers go, why not scrap the whole lot of them? After all, some people would argue the Lords is an undemocratic and unelected chamber. In a moment, we're going to be speaking to a hereditary peer, Lord Bethell. But first of all, Saira, do you think we should abolish the House of Lords with one fell swoop?
No. I think that the hereditary peers is a good idea. We don't need people to just be passing on the title. But my really good friend, Baroness Saira, she's a Conservative peer. She's a British lawyer, politician, and she was the first Muslim cabinet minister and campaigner. And she does amazing work in the House of Lords. We've got to remember that this second body holds the politicians to account. They go through a lot of the bills, so bills like, for example, Rwanda, it was, again, scrutinised by the Lords. So we do need this double chamber because we need them to be accountable. But I think you need to be elected. And I think the experience of all of those people, especially in politics. Look, I'm not a politician. I mean, Owen does a lot more work in politics than I do. But I feel like we need that experience. And once you're in politics, it's a very particular institution. You can't just let that experience go. They know what they're doing. They know, how to scrutinise bills and policies and make important impact.
So Owen, do you agree that the House of Lords is essential? It provides a break on what goes on in the House of Commons. It provides pause and expertise to see, right, this is a bill. Should it go through? Should it go through in this form? Do we want it at all? That kind of examination, minute examination.
Well, no, I mean, it gets stuff for the people who just coincidentally, for example, in many cases have donated rather large sums of money to political parties or happen to be extremely well connected with the politicians who are running the country or political party, because different parties get the chance to nominate peers. I think that's innately going to be corrupt, and I think it actually is corrupt. Tony Benn had these five questions for the powerful, which were, what power have you got? Where'd you get it from? In whose interest do you exercise it? To whom are you accountable? And how can we get rid of you? And the thing is, if there are politicians you don't like and they're annoying you, or you think they're doing a bad job, you can get rid of them. If you're a Lord, you just stop with them. They can do anything they want, and it's the luck of the draw. I actually really like Baroness Saira. She's a Conservative. I think she does brilliant work. I think that work she does, for example, on Islamophobia, she could do just as easily outside of the House of Lords. She's got a brilliant platform which she uses very well, I think. I don't think we should have, in a democracy, people you do not elect having a say over how we run the country.
Right, so we're talking about peers. Let's do one better than that. Let's actually speak to one. Let's talk to the hereditary peer, James Bethell. Morning, Lord Bethell. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So can you paint for us a picture, if you wouldn't mind, of life in this country without the House of Lords? If it were to be abolished or disbanded altogether, what do you think would happen?
Well, Saira put it so well. I mean, she totally nailed it. The role of the House of Lords is to scrutinise legislation. And that at the moment, the MPs don't do that. They don't have enough time to run their constituencies, to try to become Prime Minister, and also to look very closely at legislation. And the peers do a good job. And the Rwanda bill that she mentioned is a really good example of that. It was really detailed. It was scrutinised by the legals, by the charities, by all the people who care about the issues. And someone like Saira is a very good example of why you shouldn't be able to get rid of peers. She was utterly fearless. I don't agree with her on everything, but she really got up the nose of the Conservative government and the Conservative Party. And she was able to do that because she wasn't worried about losing her job. If she'd been in fear of being kicked out, I don't think it would have been possible for her to have been as gutsy as she was. So that's why the Lords is such a special place.
And Lord Bethell, you are about to lose your gig as
Yes.
Labour avowed that they would get rid of the hereditary peers. What will we lose when we lose you and your fellow hereditary peers, do you think?
Well, listen, the idea of a hereditary principle in a modern legislature is a total anachronism. I will be voting for the legislation, and it is time that we moved on from this. That said, there are some individuals who have huge expertise. Freddie Howe, Tom Strathclyde, the Earl of Devon, Lord Kinnoul. There are some individuals who have put in decades of work. Yeah. And it is harsh to kick them out when they've given so much and they've got quite a lot to give in future. So I rather hope that they'll be given a little bit of a life raft. What I'm sad about is that the appointments process hasn't been addressed by the government. There are vague promises that they will in the future, but I fear that they're going to do this tokenistic and quite political sort of kick out of the hereditaries, but not address the fundamental issue, which is how are appointments made. Owen is right that is a part of the system that isn't functioning well at the moment and is ripe for improvement.
I mean, one of the things I think people watching at home will think, and as you observe these kinds of procedures, is that the House of Lords is often kind of dangled as a kind of reward, a carrot, instead of a carriage clock at the end of a good career. You get kicked upstairs to the House of Lords, where we know the luncheon allowance is generous. You get paid a decent whack for showing up, just for showing up, even if actually you slumber luxuriously all day and snore occasionally. I mean, we know all of that kind of a thing. So when you say the appointments procedure needs to be re-examined, what do you think should happen to it?
Well, Vanessa, you put it quite harshly. Listen, my personal experience of the House of Lords has been really positive. I have seen people work incredibly hard, very thoughtfully, and put pressure on the government to amend legislation. You know, I stood at the dispatch box 1,600 times as a minister. It is a very tough gig. There's a huge amount of expertise in the room. When you're there as a minister, you're probably the person who knows the least about the subject that you're trying to talk about. And they really do scrutinise legislation very, very effectively. Now, everyone's got a story about how they got there in the first place, and some of those stories are quite extraordinary. But the actual performance of our second chamber, there are 75 second chambers in the world, and they're all a bit odd, frankly, but ours is one of the best performers, and I think we should be proud of it.
Ours is the only one other than Iran where religious figures have an automatic right to sit in the legislature. Isn't that weird?
Yes, let's ask Lord Bethell what he thinks about that. So we're talking about priests and ministers and archbishops and rabbis, imams and all of that.
Yes, listen, we are a country that's rooted in history, and we have procedures that have got a long reach back into that history. I'm pleased to say that we have religious leaders from many different denominations. The bishops play a really interesting and important role. I find that they root the conversations that we have in the chamber in a spiritual context and are helpful. This is not a theocracy. Comparing modern Britain to Iran is a bit of a stretch.
We're one of the least religious countries on earth, and we have an established church where in the legislature you get automatic rights for religious figures to sit. I think we need to learn from, say, New Zealand. They have a unicameral system, that's one chamber, but they strengthen the other checks and balances.
Well, we've got lots of calls coming in on this subject. Lord Bethell, thank you very much indeed, and thanks for all the work that you have done. Let's go directly to Peter in Lancashire. Hello, morning, Peter. What do you make of this? Should the whole House of Lords be abolished?
Yes, I think they should. Can I just throw a few figures at you?
Yeah.
Apparently there's about 805 members. They have subsidised meals, as you've said earlier, of roughly about £10 for a three-course meal. They get £332 a day. They get expenses, and we've just looked online, and apparently some of the members also claim expenses for their wife and children to travel with them down to the Lords. And I just think, you know, talking about who's got the broadest shoulders, I think they're not the poorest people in society. And when you think about what they've done with the winter fuel, I think they should take that away, because every time they go into the House of Lords, that's paying for a pensioner to have their winter fuel allowance.
Everything you've heard about the job that they do and the scrutiny that they provide and the break that they offer on MPs galloping away with legislation that might actually be lacking all kinds of fundamental, facets that we need, you're not impressed by that? Or you don't feel we need that?
I think they should do that for free, because I think they're very wealthy people. And if they want to help society, I think that should be the first thing they should do. They should go and do it for free.
Let's give Saira one line on this.
Well, you want them to do it for free. I mean, you don't know their personal, financial situation. And what does wealthy mean in today's society? I think that's absolute nonsense. These people are very experienced. They put their expertise to what the government is proposing: social care, climate change, Islamophobia, all sorts of policies. And you know what? If they want to have a subsidised lunch and they want to claim travel expenses, it's fine by me. I'm happy to pay my taxes for that.
All right. Thank Thank you, Peter. Let's bring in Kathy, who's on the line in Surrey. Hi, Kathy. Morning.
Oh, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yes, I feel it shouldn't be abolished totally, but should be reduced drastically. No hereditary peers, no religious leaders, and we don't need over 800 members of the House of Lords. We definitely don't.
The hereditary peers are going. That's what Keir Starmer's promised.
Definitely, I agree with the government.
But the religious leaders, what about the idea, Kathy, of, some kind of infusion of morality, of spirituality, of what's right and wrong, a kind of a moral break as well as a break in terms of, litigation that might be flawed. This is a moral break on behaviour and the way we want to look at things, kindness, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But you see, morally speaking, I mean, I am a pensioner who has lost my winter fuel allowance. I've got to get that in. And I'm just over the threshold. Yeah. So I am going to lose out totally. And I just feel the expenses should be cut drastically. I mean, there's no excuse for those expenses and those travel expenses and the food. I don't get any.
Can I say, Kathy,
talk of the royal
Kathy,
family
I just want to ask you about this. I'm very sorry, of course, that you've lost your winter fuel allowance and you're just on the threshold. Just explain what that's going to mean to you in real terms, if you wouldn't mind, because so many people are talking about this. Yeah. Hardly anybody gets to speak to someone who's actually about to live through this. So what's it going to be like for you?
Well, I've moved down south to be near my daughter after my husband died, so I'm thinking I might lose my council tax single person allowance. That will get me further into difficulty. I'm finding the cost of living in the south much harder than the north, so I'm struggling anyway. I'm just over the threshold. I think the threshold should be higher. I only get £12,500 roughly a year. That is absolutely nothing to live on. I am not a rich pensioner, as some people think. I'm right over the threshold. I'm not eligible for anything. I'm getting no help, and now I might lose my single person allowance for council tax.
By the way, Kathy, it's a disgrace, but it's really disgraceful. And actually,
I'm so upset about it.
You should be upset about it. It's not just people like yourself above the threshold, very important, but also 800,000 pensioners who are eligible for pension credit don't get it, and they're also going to lose their winter fuel payment, and they're actually in real poverty and hardship. The way to deal with it is you just everyone pays in and gets something back, and you just tax the richest pensioners. It's easy to solve.
It annoys me when I see the House of Lords when they're getting over £300 a day. That should be taken away from them drastically.
Do you get angry?
Helping people like me.
Do you also get angry, though, at the fact that the royal family, Prince Charles, for example, has had I don't know how many million pound pay rise?
The rich people should be taken away from them. I've got friends who are better off than me who spend it for Christmas drinks. That should be taken. I agree with that totally. But me, I'm in the middle. I'm not low enough to get the help, but I'm not high enough to have a lot of money.
Kathy, I'm really glad you phoned, and I appreciate you being so honest about your situation. And it must be very frightening indeed as winter begins to draw in. We all felt it in the air yesterday, and you suddenly think, oh my gosh, thinking about putting the heating on. So thank you very much for calling. Much appreciated. Let's talk to Pete in Sheffield. Hi, Pete.
Oh, hello there.
Hi.
I think it's about time we got rid of this Monty Python circus of parasites in Parliament. And I think we should have a People's Parliament. Oliver Cromwell got rid of it once, but for some reason they brought him back. And we should get rid of the monarchy as well when we run the job.
OK, well, while you're on the phone, we'll see if we can sort all that out for you, and then you'll feel so much happier. Thank you very much indeed for ringing. Later on, it's the papers and everything else.